So, as the title states, I'm going to be talking about my hypnosis experience. A lot of you guys probably don't know, but when I went through one of the darkest times in my life, I got hypnotized. It was like a 3-hour session. It was really spark of the moment kind of situation, and I just pulled the trigger and I was like, I'm willing to do anything right now to heal from this trauma. I'm doing hypnosis. I've always been a lover of like past life regressions. I find that so interesting. Whether there's relevance to it or not, what I experienced was actually pretty freaking crazy. So before we dive into the video, we do have a sponsor, which is ZocDoc. I actually use ZocDoc all the time, especially when I was in New York City during COVID, because it's so hard to find doctors. It's so hard to get on their lists. It's like a whole process. You have to like literally search, you have to find the right one for you. And then half the time they don't even take your insurance, or you can't get on their list. So ZocDoc makes finding a doctor super, super easy and convenient. Basically, you just put in your zip code, what kind of doctor you need, like what specialty, and you can easily book local top-rated doctors in your area with the click of a button. This comes in handy, especially if you need immediate care. Do you need a mammogram? Do you need a dentist? Do you have an injury? Do you want a therapist? I did not only a therapist, but I found a psychiatrist on there during COVID when I lost my dad. I did a dentist in New York City. And what I like about it the most is that you can see the reviews. They're like actual people's reviews on the doctors. You literally can see their schedule and pick a time slot that works best for you. You can filter based on your location, availability, your insurance, the rating, like all of it. It's just such an awesome experience. It makes it so easy to book a doctor. ZocDoc is also free. Not only do they have a free website, but they also have an app that you can use. Both of them are free, and they have more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty: skincare, dentist, therapy, regular doctors, you name it, they have it. And a lot of the times you can do same-day appointments, if not within 24 to 72 hours when you book. I'm personally kind of tired of the social media experts out there trying to give advice, or you going down a wormhole online instead of actually booking like a real doctor. Every time I do that, I get so mad at myself because I feel like I just wasted so much of my time and stress instead of just literally finding a doctor. And I literally put it off so long because it is such a process, and I hate dealing with insurance companies, doctors, and availabilities and all that stuff. But ZocDoc is literally an all-in-one place. You can get it done within like 5 minutes. I personally am a user of ZocDoc. I've used them so many times before, so I'm super excited that they're sponsoring today's video. You can go to ZocDoc.com. Try to say that 20 times fast. You can go to ZocDoc.com/Renee Amberg to easily book local doctors in your area who can see you very quickly. Huge shout out to them. I will link everything in the description box down below. And speaking of therapy, the therapy that I chose for my hypnosis is called QHHT therapy. I think actually one of you guys had mentioned it when I was going through everything that I had gone through. I was gonna say this year, but we're in 2025. We are done with 2024. In 2024, yeah, I just found it really interesting. I dove into like this wormhole and I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. Essentially, it's like you have a 3-hour like traditional style therapy session where you go from like your whole life journey, and you talk about from the time you were a baby up until now, what you've gone through, why you want to come. Like they kind of just like understand where you're coming from. I went to this lady's house. I don't even think she had a website, but I went to this lady's house and it was just like the weirdest thing I've ever done, honestly. But I was at the point where I was like, I need something. Like, I can't keep living like this. I was so depressed. I've never been so low in my life. And so I went, and it was so zen. Like I walked into a door that led me outside of the world. I don't know how to describe her aura, but there was something about her. I thought I was gonna be walking kind of like into like a hippy dippy situation, but it was so clean. It was like nice and modern. So we just sat down and talked about everything. Literally everything. I told her some things that I haven't even told people in my life about. So all or nothing for me. There was one little inkling that I was like, I'm not gonna tell her because I don't know, like I've had never told anyone this. And I ended up doing it and I don't regret it. Basically, she then goes into hypnotizing you, and then she basically will talk to your higher self. I've heard of this concept before, and I first came across it with the the medium Teresa Caputo. I read her book a long time ago, and essentially she described your inner self, your higher self, if you will, as like levels. Like you know what you're coming down here to learn, and you kind of choose to an extent the path that you're gonna go through. And then every time that you learn that lesson, you like go up a level until you reach like the peak, and then you've learned your lessons or something like that. And I've heard this concept kind of essentially described the same way throughout a lot of my spiritual journey. It just is really interesting. So it's like if you have an alcoholic father or something, like you chose that to learn, you know, forgiveness or compassion, like those big monumental spirit lessons. And so if your life is really hard, you're probably learning a really tough lesson. Or yeah, like that's kind of how she described it as well. So I was like, oh, okay, I kind of like this, like I'm vibing with this completely. And she talks to your higher self. I feel like I'm gonna cry all of a sudden. Is that my higher self? Why am I getting emotional? Oh my God. Yeah, so she sits you down and she puts you in this hypnosis state. I honestly was like kind of scared because I've seen the movie Get Out, and I'm like, oh my God, what if I get stuck and whatever. Like, it honestly scared me. I didn't know what it was gonna feel like. And at first I was kind of just like in a meditative state, and I was like, is this real? Like, I don't even know. But I started slowly kind of visually seeing slides of things. Okay, and yeah, I'm gonna go into my past lives here, okay? You guys are gonna know this, okay? So the first one, I was like a little boy, sitting in the back of a car, kind of just like looking out the window, and there was like trees going by, and my mom was driving. She kind of like asks you questions, and what she'll do is she'll guide you to different parts of that life of like, what are you trying to explain to Renee here? Like, can you release certain things? Like, has she learned this lesson now? Is it serving her? If it's not, can you release it from her? And she'll do like this kind of like visual exercise of having it flow out of you. I don't even remember a lot of it. But anyway, so I was in that world or whatever, and she like fast forwarded me to like another part of his life, and I'm getting emotional again. Why? Oh my God, I feel like I'm like reconnecting with these people again, and it feels like me. Like, it's such an emotional thing. I don't even know how to describe it. He was like in an office, like a really boring, mundane office, and something about my personality is I hate like cold, like, I don't even know how to describe it, just gray life where it, like, you're not progressing. Like, I've always felt the need to like want to always improve myself and like be better, like have something interesting going on. The mundane and like boringness of just like living life and then not having anything exciting happening. It's like a bland life. I don't know how to describe it, but I've always just felt like icky when I think about that. And he was living like that life. It was like just an office. He was like single and was like almost kind of like an, I would say like a 80s, 70s style office, like just no character, like the cubicle thing, like that always gave me ick. Like, I've always felt that way. And so yeah, like it was just really, he just looked kind of like he was coasting through life. Like there was nothing exciting. It was just boring. So fast forward to this really happy time in his life, and there was just like, oh, I'm gonna cry. I'm just gonna get emotional, okay guys? I'm just telling you guys that right now. He was with this blonde girl, like beautiful blonde. I don't know, they were celebrating something, and I don't know if it was for her or for him, and there was like people around, and he was like, it was like really happy, like lots of people, and they were in this like darker, like kind of moody restaurant, and they were celebrating. I remember it being like the best moment in his life. Like, I felt it. He was just so happy, and he kept like looking at this girl like she was the pinnacle of the happiness. It wasn't like anything they were celebrating. It wasn't him, or like he was just looking at her, and like her happiness like brought so much love out of him. And I was just like, I was so happy. Like, that's me technically. And so yeah, it was just like beautiful. And then this is where it gets really sad. We fast forward, and he has 2 kids, like 2 boys, and he's grilling, and he's happy, but it's like a different phase of happiness in life. It's almost like acceptance. And he was with another woman, like a light brown hair, and she was like really pretty, and he loved her, but like the other blonde, like I just knew she died, like she wasn't around. And he was like content with it and was okay with it, and it was like, oh my God. And I don't know, and then she fast forwards you to their death, and he was in a room surrounded by his family and love. And I think the whole premise of that, what I felt when I was dying, she takes you through the death, was that he was really happy with the life that he built, like in his family. But it was kind of a more average life, and that woman was like his pinnacle of his life, that blonde girl, whatever happened to her. But he lost her. Like, I knew she died. I just knew she died. And he was surrounded, he was in a hospital with his kids and like grandkids, and he just was like, he lived a really like noble life, and like it was just kind of like basic. I don't know how to describe it. So then she takes me on to this other story. This one is insane, okay? This one's gonna make me cry. I was a little boy, and I was like in this really dirty house kind of. Like, it was like clean, but it was like, it wasn't the ideal like family house. And the mom and dad were arguing, and he was like pulling on, I was like pulling on my mom. So then fast forward, oh yeah, I got itchy. And I was like itching everywhere. And I was like, I really can't, like, I have this on recording, by the way. This was the first time that I was like, I was submerged in the hypnosis, that I literally was like, I cannot explain this at all. I was just itching, I'm itching. And it's so weird too, because I had this like health problem during 2020 where I was like itching so bad on my chest, and I would get this like rash. But I was like itchy, and I was like in this like alley behind like a dumpster, like there were flies. I just felt like, I literally felt like a rat. Like I was skinny boned, and it was like I was a rat. I don't know how to like, that's literally, I was like, I'm a rat, but I wasn't a rat. I was a man, like a skinny, just like bony man in an alley, itching everywhere, itchy. I'm assuming it was a drug or something. Fast forward to a time in his life where he was graduating from something. He had like, it was some sort of celebration again. He had like a graduating hat, but it was in like this, again, like a basic, like, if I can find a picture, I'll pop something here that I can visually think about, like the kind of business building from like the 70s that has those tile ceilings where like you push up and it's like gray and has the fluorescent lights, like, and he was so depressed. Like they were celebrating him though, and I think it was like sobriety or something, and he was sitting there like this, and I was sitting there like this. It was just like the most depressing thing, and it was like you did everything that everyone has always been telling you what to do, and you still are unhappy. There was no one around. It was like 1 or 2, 3 people maybe, no one he knew, and it just felt like he finally accomplished something, but there was no reward because he didn't do it for himself. And then this is where it gets really scary. Fast forward, and she didn't even say fast forward to his death, she just said fast forward, and she usually prepared me before the death, like fast forward to the last day. And I literally like started hyperventilating. I was dying. I literally was like, I can't breathe, like, and I remember it was like, I just knew I had inhaled something, almost like a drug thing where like they like take the can and they breathe it in. This is the first time I felt scared. I was like, I felt him dying. Like I was dying, and I was like, I can't breathe. Like I panicked. I was like, I can't breathe. Like I felt everything. Like I literally was dying. Since she like got me out of that real quick, I don't really remember I have to go back because I have it on recording, but I don't really remember the lesson of that. It was just like really sad. And at the end of every life, like you can feel them floating up, like your soul floating up. It's like kind of vanished. And then this one's kind of cute. So then we fast forward to this little girl, and it was like almost like a prairie style, like they had this house and these women were in these kind of like Victorian style dresses, and I was like bouncing around. I had like all these curls, and I was so like bubbly, like extra annoyingly bubbly little girl, and I had this big bow and my hair was like all curly, and I had this dress on, and my mother, I knew it was my mom, had like all her girlfriends over, and there were like house workers in the house, and there was like some sort of party, so there was lots of food, and I was just bouncing around with my brother, like just bouncing. And then we fast forwarded, and God, there was something in between that. Oh, I was in a Thanksgiving dinner, and I was just sitting around, and I was like this older woman, kind of like a little pudgier, but I was probably like 60, 70, and I had the love of my life next to me. He was like this older man, and we were both sitting in like a chair, kind of like up, and I was holding his hand, and I was just looking around, and I was just like reminiscing about the family and like how I made this and how everyone came to be, and like I was just so blissfully happy because everyone I loved was like in one place, and I just had so much love for this man sitting next to me. And then we fast forward, and this is also really sad. This one, I started crying in the hypnosis. Like I was like crying. I was sitting in front of a TV. It was like a small like TV, and I was alone. It was just me, and I was like, I don't know where like that guy went, but I was like in the same house, but I was just sitting there alone in the TV, and I just died. And I remember thinking I felt so guilty when I was dying, because I was like, I'm not able to say bye to my kids, like I'm not going to be able to tell them it's okay, and like I just felt so guilty that I was dying without helping them first. It was like this weird feeling, and I was like panicked that, I don't know, like I was just leaving them. I went into the clouds, and that guy was there, my husband, and he like hugged me and we like rekindled, and it was like this most amazing feeling I cannot even describe to you. And it was like the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And he told me it was gonna be okay and we're together again and like it's gonna be fine. And it was just like this beautiful, amazing feeling. Like she lived a really good life. I think back and I'm like, what like all correlates behind these stories? And I think a lot of it has to do with like the people in your life being the most important, because a lot of these pinnacle moments were around people. They weren't around experiences or material, obviously. A lot about family and like love, like relationship love, building, and just a lot of like people and family. That's kind of how I depict what that was about. And yeah, it was like pretty crazy. And then I left and said bye. It was the weirdest thing. She was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And she goes, I think you should wait 30 minutes to drive. So I like waited for a little bit, but like I was kind of in this trance after for a while. I like had this aura of like peace. After you go through your past lives, she talks about the trauma and stuff that you personally are dealing with in this life, which I'm not going to go into. But again, like she releases or expands on certain things. Something I will tell you is that I saw like your higher self is like at a like level of height. This is what I saw. My level was like right here, like let's say it was floating right here. And she like let me talk to Bryson's higher self, and he was like way up there. And I remember just knowing, and she telling me, and she told me too, that means like his higher self is like at such a higher wavelength than mine, which means he's probably lived many lives before this. He's just wiser that way. Yeah, he was like way high, and I was like, wow, that's my son. I talked a lot about like my dad, Bryson, me and Z, and our relationship. Yeah, it was very healing. I felt very healed. I kind of just came to a conclusion with what I wanted in that moment. I think I was struggling a lot with where am I supposed to go from here with life. Yeah, it just gave me kind of clarity and like gave me different perspectives and like feelings from other different perspectives that I would have never gotten obviously if I hadn't done it. And yeah, it was scary at that one point, but it was so worth it. And I have it on like a recording, and she's like, you can watch it again in 3 months and then watch it again in however long, and then most people just throw it away. Would I do it again? I don't know. Am I glad I did it? Yes. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. See if they have it on ZocDoc. Do they? Let's see. Oh my gosh, they do. A psychotherapist is what they're grouped under. So definitely check that out if you want to try it out. I recommend it. I think it's really interesting, if anything. I was kind of like talking to myself. I remember if you listen back, it's like, she means this and she's doing this. Like my higher self was saying she, but I was like talking. It was really weird. There was one thing that she told me I was going through that was like a traumatic thing that she asked to be released, but because I haven't learned the lesson yet, my higher self didn't release it. So yeah, I feel like I need to go back and like actually like sit down and listen to it. But that was my hypnosis experience, my QHHT. Thank you for the person who had recommended that. Yeah, it was really interesting. I hope you guys got something from this. I love past life regressions, and go down that wormhole online today. It's really freaking interesting. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in a future video.